hello out there. Welcome to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast. And I'm your host, Cassandra Crawley Mayo. And for my new listeners out there, let me share with you what this podcast is all about. It's for those individuals who are ready to move forward in their lives, do something different in their lives, knowing that they're in a place that they like to leave that place and go to a different place. And also individuals that have obstacles in doing so and they're stuck. We're here to kind of mitigate those self-imposed barriers, those negative self-talks, anything that is hindering you to living your best life on your terms. And we talk about topics such as personal and business development. And also this allows you to do some self-reflection based on the topics that we talk about. Now, this topic today is titled, which I think is unbelievable, if you're not the problem, there is no solution. And who better yet to share that with us is Melanie Yates. And I'm going to welcome Melanie to our podcast. Good day, Melanie. How are you I don't want to say this morning, but how are you today?
Well, thank you. What a pleasure it is to be here. And I love that introduction because, we get in our own way. And I always think of, if I'm not the problem, there is no solution because I only have control of myself. So I love what your podcast stands for. And I just invite everyone to just take a deep breath in and open your mind because we're going to get to some great business today about how to live your life more happy and free.
Oh, great. Well, before we get started, I'd like to read your background a little bit for my listeners so they'll get to know who you are and who am I speaking with. And her name again is Melanie Yates. She is a seasoned coach who guides individuals through emotional pain towards lasting happiness. With over a decade of experiences, she has empowered countless people to transform their lives through personalized coaching, seminars, and videos. Now, Melanie's journey from her self defeating to spiritual awakening has equipped her with valuable insight and tools to help others manage their emotions and embrace joy. She shares these transformative truths with those seeking relief from pain, numbness, offering a path to love and happiness within reach. She's also a best-selling author, and the name of her book is Happy, Joyous, and Free. Wow, what a bio. Melanie, I'd like you to tell my listeners, before you started helping individuals get unstuck and back on the path of effectiveness, what was your backstory before then? What was going on with Melanie back in those days?
Well, I find that you have to be stuck in order to help other people get unstuck. You have to know what that feels like.
Mhm.
So I was very stuck. I was in a relationship that it feels like was killing me,
Mhm.
just emotionally and spiritually, physically, because, when things are off in those realms, it does affect your physical health and your physical body. And so I just, I think the root cause was, like all of us, we definitely grow up, and
Yeah.
while we're growing up, we get these beliefs, and some of them do not serve us, right? Some of those
Right.
beliefs, and it's not about blame, but what happened for me is that I was just so much pain, um, and not really, it was a perfectionism kind of thing
Right.
where I was raised with really high standards
Mm.
um, that I just thought were normal. And I don't think like I said, it's not anybody's fault. It's just I became attached to achievement and approval and attention giving me my worth. And
Mhm.
so when I didn't get that from people, places, and
You've been
things, I
quiet.
got so stuck. I was so stuck. I was in so much emotional pain. And I don't know about you, but when you're in that kind of emotional pain, you are looking for anything to
Mm-hmm.
get you out of it. And so I was using things like food, um,
Mm.
alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
um, I wanted to numb being stuck. I did not want to look at it.
Yeah.
Um, and it got so like using those outside things to try to feel better
Yes.
ended up I just got in a really bad place where I needed help. And
Right.
sometimes people call it like a rock bottom. And
Right.
if somebody doesn't feel like that today, don't worry, because the beautiful thing about a bottom is you can stop digging at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us
Mm-hmm.
dig deeper than others before we look up to want something different. So that's,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, basically it comes down to I was in pain. That's how I got
Mm-hmm.
into this line of work. I was in a lot of pain, and
Wow.
somebody helped me, and I am so committed to helping other people. Like, that's what happened.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible because there are a lot of people out there that are stuck. And it sounds like you made a decision. I mean, you got to make a decision that you want to get out of that. What was some of the methodologies that help you besides you being in pain? Was that enough to get you out? Because there are people that's listening that's in pain emotionally, physically, and all of that, and some, but yet they are just struggling to get out of it. So, how did you neutralize the pain of emotions?
Well, first you have to admit there's a problem. You
Okay.
really do. I mean, when I say, you know, if if I'm not the problem, there is no solution. I have to
Mhm.
actually admit
Okay.
that there is a problem and I need help.
Mm-hmm.
That is the very first step, is just you have to admit
Okay.
that you have a problem and that on your own you aren't getting anywhere. So, I knew there was a problem, but I kept trying to do it myself. And so
Yeah.
the biggest, if you're feeling like you're in trouble right now or you're stuck, just admitting like where you're at. This is where you're at, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just
Mm-hmm.
we're not meant to do this world by ourselves. So
Mm-hmm.
the number one thing is ask for help.
Okay.
Acknowledge that you don't have to do it alone. No one has to do this life alone. We're not meant to
Okay.
do it alone. That's why there's so many of us.
Right.
I just went to
Exactly.
India. There's a lot of people. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people. We're not meant to be alone. We're not meant to isolate. And I think that's part of the problem with being stuck, is that we start isolating ourselves, we start
Mm-hmm.
pulling back, and
Mm-hmm.
in a way we keep ourselves stuck, because I start pulling away from
Mm-hmm.
the solution.
Right. Right. Now I love that when you said you become aware, you gave yourself permission that something's wrong here. And I'm aware that I have some issues that need to be resolved. And so you're right to first become aware of it, acknowledge it that you have them. And, Melanie, now let's talk about your circle of influence when you were in that, what do I want to call it, in that deep hole. Were people, like you said, we're not here to do things by ourselves. Did you have people in your circle that recognized that you were stuck or recognized that you were having some challenges in your life? And also, if so, did you accept that? And the reason I ask, because I always tell my listeners, your circle of influence is very important. Who you have around you, who you surround yourself with. So that's why I'm asking the question, did you have a circle of friends that recognized that something was going on and maybe encouraged you to get some help, or what was that like with your friends or your circle?
Well, for me, I had become so low that the
Mhm.
people are, I really, they say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And like I said,
Mhm.
I was in a relationship that was really hurting me. And
Mhm.
it's because of my perspective. It wasn't that person. I mean,
Mhm. Okay.
relationships, 2 people, but it was the way I perceived. See, I was looking for that person to make me happy. I was looking for that
Right.
person to
Okay.
fulfill what I'm responsible for. I'm responsible for my happiness and my self-esteem and my confidence and my achievements and my own approval. It doesn't come from other people, but I was looking in the wrong places for love. I love that
Okay.
song, looking for love in all the wrong places,
Right.
because that's where I was at. So I was reading books and I realized that, I was searching, right? I was searching.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
one of the books that I was reading, and I know Jim Rohn talks about this, is you don't necessarily have to know that person
Mhm.
to be a circle of influence in your life. So I started looking for people that I didn't know that I could
Okay.
learn about how they lived their life.
Okay.
So I started looking for, you know, people I could look up to, people I could respect. I actually at that point I had gotten so low, I didn't really have anybody around me I respected. So I
Oh
had
wow.
to create um,
Mhm.
a circle of influence. And so, it's like, well, how do I raise the average of the people I'm around? Well, by putting it in my ear. So every time I got in the car, I would have Darren Hardy or Oprah Winfrey or
Mhm.
Brene Brown, or these people that I looked up to that had something that I was looking for,
Right.
and people that were inspiring me. So I started raising my average by who am I listening to? I might
Mhm.
not, I didn't have face to face time, but they were in my head, they were in my
Okay.
iPod, you know.
Okay.
And when I would take a walk, I would be hearing, a circle of influence. And I did get outside help as well, but
Mhm.
I first had to admit there's a problem so that I could ask for help.
Yes.
And so it just so today, let's take today. Like today, guess what? I still have problems.
Right.
Guess what? My self-esteem still needs growing. Guess what?
Yes.
It's never done. So even
Exactly.
today I would say I have a circle of influence where there's people in my life that I can be honest about. Like even yesterday, I feel a lot better today than I did yesterday. Yesterday, I just woke up, and it could be from I'm just coming down from this incredible experience that I had on this vacation. So it, I felt lousy. I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like I was
Mhm.
wasting my life away. I felt like I didn't have a purpose. What am I
Mhm.
doing here?
Mhm.
And then, of course, I don't know about you, but when I get into that, you know what I start doing? I
What's that?
start nitpicking other people. Like I
Oh,
start thinking my husband bugs me,
yeah.
that so and so should get their act together,
Yeah.
because it's like this bad mood, this negative
Yes.
self-talk that I
Yes.
really is
Yes.
aimed at me. I
Right.
start projecting it on other people, and
Right.
that's where um, I've learned through awareness of when I start complaining, that is a signal. It's like a red flag. If I
Yeah.
start complaining about somebody else, it's like, okay, pause,
Okay.
time out.
Okay.
What's really going on?
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
and it always has to do, there's something inside
Mhm.
that needs an acknowledgement. Like I need to admit, yesterday I had to come to terms with there's something wrong inside.
Exactly. You had to pivot.
Yeah. And what's the next thing? And I've learned that I asked for help. You know, I asked a friend, I said, hey, I don't feel good. Like emotionally, I don't feel good. And, you know, she gave me a suggestion.
What's that?
And, well, she told me to do some writing.
Okay.
And, you know, writing is, you know, in my book, I kind of talk about different ways to write things out and to process being angry at somebody or, you know, to me, I have this little way of doing it, and it always comes down to something inside me says you're not enough. And what do we do with that? You know, what do you do when it comes down to I don't feel like enough? And how do I train negative self-talk, you know, into that positive self-talk? So first is awareness. Like I had to become aware, like there's something's off, like you know, and then how do I pivot that? And so you know, rewiring the way I'm looking at something by having a positive affirmation. And for me, I always use body language to help with those affirmations. So there's been so much research on how body language actually releases the hormones and chemicals in our brain. Something as simple as smiling. The brain, whether I feel like smiling or not, or whether I am like in a real crap mood.
Yes.
If I smile, my brain gets a signal. Oh, she's smiling. That means release those endorphins, those smiling hormones, and something happens.
Right.
Also, something happens when you frown.
That's right.
Something happens when you fold your arms and you pouch and you're looking down. You know, one thing, if anyone hears anything from me today, just notice where your eyes are during the day. Are they down? What signal is that giving your brain when you look down?
Okay.
When you get small, especially for women, we're kind of trained in our society here in the United States to be small, to cross our legs, to be little, to fold our arms, to be ladylike. Where men, when you think of a masculine, confident, even arrogant man, they get big. They're willing to take up space. And so I invite us, when we think of an affirmation, to use your body language by taking up space, putting both feet on the ground, putting your hands on your hip, putting your hands in the air. A high five. Five. We've been trained from the beginning. A high five is a celebration. It's a yes moment, right?
Wow.
So when we use our body, our brain picks up on that way quicker than just saying it. And you know, neuroplasticity is about all those neurons in your brain, and we have all these senses in our brain. And the more you can turn on, the faster you will get to the affirmation or result you're looking for. So by getting the senses, and the facial expressions and the hearing and and movement.
Yeah. Well, listen, Melanie, you have said so much. And first of all, that I really want my listeners to hear this, what you said. And I was going to ask you, who inspires you? But one of the things you said you did that helps you get out of that deep hole is you listen. When I asked you first, did you have a circle of influence? You know, and you just said you talked to a friend yesterday that told you, why don't you write? So that was one person that kind of helped you through this. But you also said that you pay attention to what you listen to. So you listen to the Oprahs and to the Jim Rohn and the Hardy. You listen to all of those individuals because they spoke life to you. And I want my listeners to hear that. It's kind of like turn off the TV. If you need a pick me up, or the TV's not going to help you unless it's somebody on that's inspirational, that can speak life into your life. So I wanted to highlight that, and I think that that's really great. And you also talked about what I want people to understand is, although you're a coach and you've done some great work and you have a lot of clients and you help them, you're human. You're human. So therefore, being human, you get those days. You get those days that you're in a slump, and sometimes I call it a funk. And I have a friend that hates that word, but I'm like, I'm in a funk today, but we're human and it's okay. Now, if we stay like that for a long time, then that's not okay. So these were some things that you talked about that helps you get out of your way based on what happened back in your childhood. You talked about the acknowledging. I have what I call an ABC formula, and that's that. I call it a detox formula for people that negative self-talk. Where is that coming from? You're right, aware. Be acknowledge what it is. Then where did that belief come from? It had to come from somewhere. Like you talked about, you were trying to be perfect. Everything had to be perfect. Where did that come from? And then you challenge the validity of where that thought came from. And I call that the ABCs. So you just talked about some really great things that I wanted to reiterate that we're human, and we're not up every day. And also you talked about the body language. Watch your body language with the things that how you're presenting yourself. So I appreciate you being authentic and letting individuals know I'm not like this all the time. Yeah, and that is okay. Now I want to talk about your book. What's the foundational steps to cultivating joy regardless of your circumstances?
That is an incredible question. It's a great question because, I've come to believe that happiness is a choice, but
Mm.
joy
Mhm.
is my perception.
Okay.
And so when I figure out that the way I see the world is negative, I
Yeah.
have the agency to choose something different.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know, when I find something wrong with my husband, you know, or my kid, or my friends, or
Hmm.
my parents, or my siblings, it's like, just pick somebody. I know everybody has somebody out there that, they want to take you want to take their inventory. You want to, there's something about them that you think, whatever in your mind, you think what's best for them, right?
Mm. Okay.
And so that's my perception.
Yeah.
And if I can't acknowledge that I'm the problem, there's no solution because I'm trying to control people, places,
Mm.
and things. I'm trying to control
Yeah.
things that are outside of me. And when I do that, it brings misery.
Mm.
For me, I'm the one that's miserable. And so even, I'm so glad I had a bad day yesterday so I can keep
Yeah.
remembering how the heck did I get from yesterday to today without
Yeah.
medication, right? Without
Yeah.
drinking, without overeating. Well, to tell you the truth, I did probably numb a little bit with some cookies. So again,
Okay.
I'm not perfect. I'm trying to show that even studying and researching and practicing and coaching and teaching, this is an ongoing journey. And I get
Right.
to look at my behavior yesterday and look at the good things I was able to do and the things that
Hmm.
maybe I want to do better. Um and how do I do that? Well, for me, like, I need a higher power. So
Hmm.
I choose to call that God.
Yes.
Those of you that that word makes you cringe or whatever, just replace it with the word love, because we were created with love. And I believe that all of us have something inside of us that craves and yearns for love. And
Yeah.
so love is just an easy way of looking at it, but I need something greater, like an unconditional love, to give me hope that
Mm-hmm.
that nothing stays the same, that things are going to keep changing, that my feelings aren't facts, that life is going to go on. And
Yeah.
that love
Yeah.
sometimes gets people perceive it as it's like a reward, like
Mm-hmm.
um I'm going to find love out there somewhere. But
Yeah.
that joy as a perception for me is defining how you want to see life, and then creating the feelings and thoughts and behaviors to get the result. Because
Okay.
that's what it takes. That's what it takes. It
Right.
takes those thoughts. To me, thoughts, people will interchange feelings and thoughts to get behaviors, but either way, your thoughts create feelings, feelings create behaviors, behaviors create results. And so I've heard lots of different people say it, well, feeling create the thought. It doesn't matter either way.
That's great.
Both of those things create action and behavior, and then that's the result. So if I don't think I'm good enough, and that makes me feel bad about myself and sorry for myself, and I play the victim, that gets me a behavior. I start acting a certain way, and then that attracts results.
Right.
So to me, joy is the way I perceive life. And so joy can, if I perceive that no matter what happens, so my book is Happy, Joyous, and Free. Love
Yeah.
your life no matter what. Meaning that it doesn't matter what happens. It's all part of the plan. You can't know something's good if you haven't felt the yin and yang of it. Like you have
Right.
to have,
The bad to know what's good, right?
yes, the law of
Yeah.
opposition. I mean, that's what life is all about. And that's, to me, life is about learning and growing. And a lot of us, growing and learning is painful. And so we avoid it, or we ignore it, or we try to get out of it, or we self-medicate. Like that's what I did for a long time. And
Mm-hmm.
to be honest, I still do it. Like I said, I ate cookies yesterday,
Right.
more than one. And so to me, when I do something like that, I'm trying to get my comfort from
Yeah.
something else besides that love that I'm talking about.
Yeah. And so, Melanie, what advice? Because you just reading about you, you seem to be a healthcare advocate, and also you give advice for individuals, their behaviors like mental illness and anxiety. Is there a correlation between the healthcare advocacy and giving advice for people that have behaviors of unwanted behaviors, I would say, of anxiety and mental illness? Because that's really big now. It's always, to me, has been big. It's just that more people are talking about it, and it's not as taboo. For some, it still is, and people don't like to talk about it. But what advice would you give? I guess I'm making an assumption you've had clients that have those unwanted behaviors like anxiety and mental illness. What advice do you give them?
That there's hope. That everybody's got something. You're really not unique. It might appear that have something that's harder than what other people go through, but I just believe that's not true. We all
Mm-hmm.
are here,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a plan for each of us, and that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes looks individual, but everybody's got something. We're here
Right.
to grow and learn. So if you have a handicap, for whatever if you want to call it a physical handicap or a emotional, mental handicap like depression or anxiety or ADD or autism, what the
Mm-hmm.
list goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be defined by that label. And
Mm-hmm.
there's always hope. So just being able to like admit, again, it just goes right back to even with your formula that you have, the admit where you are,
Mm-hmm.
what's the problem you want to work on. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter where you're at. We all have health problems, relationship problems, money problems. Those to me are like, everybody has those. And there's meant to be growth and learning in each of those categories. So,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to be huge. Like, just, I invite all of us to just pick one. Just pick one between the money, health, and relationships that you want to make a decision today about your perception, about the joy you could have in one of those areas.
Mm-hmm.
And it just takes a simple tweak in the way you see that relationship or that health problem. That's
Mm-hmm.
all it's a small tweak in our perception that can open the door, open our minds, open our hearts. You know, sometimes our mind is, a defective character because it stops us. It analyzes. Like that's
Yeah.
the brain's job is to analyze everything. And sometimes we need to open our hearts so that our light can come out,
Right.
um, and that we can feel that light.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by joy. Joy is a
Okay.
light. And you've heard stories. You've heard stories. You can look them up about people that are going through horrible things and they shine their light anyway. Like
Exactly.
when someone is killed by a drunk driver or texting and the family forgives. That's
Yeah.
light. That's a perception. That's joy even when the circumstances isn't the way I want it. So I want to give people hope that there is a way. It's just most of us need training. We have to train our brain to think a certain way. Otherwise, it goes to the default. And there's nothing wrong with any of us if you
Mm-hmm.
go to the default because we were born with the negative default. The
So
default
yeah.
is
Let me
negative.
let me ask you this question though, Melanie. I noticed that you're really dedicated to saving marriages, and you talk about relationships. So I want to hone back on that a little bit. Why are you so dedicated to saving marriages? Where did that come from?
Wow. Well, I mean, I got divorced.
Okay.
And I was raised, you don't get divorced. You
Okay.
choose. Man, my dad he would just pound this thought in that love is a choice. So when
Right.
you choose to marry somebody, you choose to love them. I don't care what happens, right?
Okay.
And he did give a couple stipulations, like, if you're being physically beaten,
Yeah.
okay, he might say it's okay to leave that, right? But
Right.
for the most part, and it's not about what my dad said because it's really just what I heard. He might not have even said that. He
Right.
might not even agree with that today. I don't know. But as a kid, we might not even hear it. But that's the belief I took away, right?
Okay.
So I had a lot of shame around getting divorced,
Yeah. Okay.
and it felt like I mean, it's like a death of a fairy tale, right? Because we read all these books, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Happily Ever After, and
Right.
man,
Okay.
like there was a death of a dream. Like
Yeah.
I got married, and I got divorced, and it just felt, it's this death
Okay.
of
So
the way
that's where
you
it
thought
came
life
from.
was going to
Yeah.
be. And
That's yeah. That's great. That's where it came from. It's all part of your backstory. Let me
yeah,
ask you, so all the clients that you have, is there a commonality with all the clients? Is there a common denominator on why they come to you? Is there anything specific that draws them to you?
well, I would hope that it's because I'm willing to be authentic and sincere,
Okay.
um, and that I have my own experience. So I feel like I attract people that have had similar experiences.
Okay.
Um, so I did work in the medical field. You asked me about working in the medical. I worked in interventional radiology with x-rays of arteries and veins for 21 years.
Okay.
I was on call for the hospital. It was a very demanding physical, emotional, mental job. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I love helping people with medical burnout, medical professionals with burnout. My favorite thing is definitely marriage or dating and relationships,
Okay.
because if you're not the problem, there is no solution. So I love
Okay.
seeing people uncover, because it's so easy to be like, there's no guys out there.
Right.
Um, we blame the opposite sex, or, we lose hope. And it's like,
Right.
I like to empower people that if you can admit that you're in your own way, there is hope and there is a solution. But
Okay.
you got to admit you're in your own way.
Right.
So
Right.
I can't wait
Okay.
to read your book, Cassandra. It just sounds like right up my alley.
Yeah, I think you'd love it. Now, as we wrap up, I want to talk about one other thing, burnout. You talk a lot about burnout. So, how do you stay balanced with your daily routine? And then there was a comment in there. You said, love on a tight schedule. And these are for the professionals. Um, so, where did the burnout, and I'm gathering the love on a tight schedule is when you're so busy professionally, it's just kind of difficult, maybe, to show love, because love is an action, because some people work so much they forget that they have a mate, or not that they don't forget it, but it's not a priority. It's more about their profession. So what's your solution to burnout, and are you, and I guess your daily routine, so you won't get burned out because of all that you do?
Yeah, part of what I found, one of my mistakes in my first marriage was because I worked so much.
Okay.
Um, and my partner did feel like I was never home or available because of my job. So I really can relate to physicians, people that work a lot and their family feels like they're not there.
Mhm.
So what is important is that, sometimes we think we don't have enough time,
Mhm.
but again, that is a false belief.
Mhm.
It is a perception in
Yeah.
our mind. And so everybody has 24 hours a day,
Right.
right? We're supposed to sleep 7 to 8, you
Yeah.
know? Um, so, and a lot of us work 8 to 12. So that doesn't leave a lot
Yeah.
of hours left in the day. So what I do is I help people create an AM PM routine that doesn't take a lot of time. So in the beginning, I would 60 seconds. You're going to start tomorrow with something that fills you up, that's 60 seconds. So
Mhm.
that you can't completely, it's like everybody has 60 seconds, I love giving assignments to my clients that you do in the bathroom. So, because everyone has to go to the bathroom, so it also helps you remember, what am I supposed to, when I go to the bathroom, what do I do?
Okay.
And for health professionals, like I'll even give them the assignment of you have to go to the bathroom during your work day because you can
Yes.
get so busy you won't even go to the bathroom. And I
Yeah.
have a whole story about that, but we won't get into it.
Right.
So doing something like a high five in the mirror to yourself of like, I got out of bed early today. I love you, looking yourself in the eye and saying, I love you. There's things, practicing those power poses, those body languages,
Mm-hmm.
that could, having a body language for 60 seconds in the bathroom
Mm-hmm.
can change a lot. So I like giving people things that are easy to remember, simple to do, and that don't take a lot of time. And your brain needs consistency, it's not always quantity or time. It's like, oh, I need to self-care more. Oh, I need to self-love. If you feel like you don't have time to do that, start with 60 seconds. We try to eat the whole elephant in one sitting, and it's just got to do it bite by bite and admit where you are. If you're in a lot of self-hatred, then we start small,
Right. So only 1 minute in the bathroom. Smile. Right. I love you. Give yourself a high five.
That's
Okay.
for a while I was having such a hard time getting out of bed after I left the hospital and I started working for myself. I could not get out of bed.
Yeah.
And so I heard this high five thing by Mel Robbins, who is one of my people. She's someone I look up to today.
Great.
And she has a high five challenge.
Right.
And she said, let's do a high five challenge for 30 days. And people would say the results that they were getting. And the cool thing about a high five is your brain already knows what that means. So I would just, every morning I would get, hey, high five, you got up out of bed,
Wow.
Yeah.
Mel should know because she couldn't get out of bed either, right?
Yeah. So and I relate to that. So I think, I relate to Mel Robbins because there's stories that she shares that are very vulnerable, not perfect, that it's like, oh, she's like me.
Right.
It's like there's this identity thing. So whenever I can, I really try to be, honest and sincere and authentic and upfront about what the truth is.
Yeah.
Like, what do you have to lose if someone finds out you're not perfect? You know what I mean?
That's what people want. They want authenticity. They can relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Melanie, I just want to thank you for, I know my listeners have enjoyed all that you had to say. We could talk all day, but we don't have that time, right? Yeah. So the conversation was great. And I love the title. If you're not the problem, there is no solution. So you have provided a lot of nuggets, I would say, to my listeners. And for my listeners, if you believe that this podcast, this topic was of value, please share it with your loved ones, share it with your friends. Not only is it's going to be on all podcast platforms, and I am live every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Melanie, do you have any parting words to my listeners whose way is in their way, that you could share with them as we sign off?
There is hope. There is nothing wrong with you. There is hope. You just have to ask for it. More than you probably think. People want you to succeed and be happy. And, I know even that I don't know you, I just know from my own experience, it doesn't matter how low you've been. Look up.
Yes, that's good. So, Melanie, thank you so much. I don't say goodbye to my listeners or to my guests. I always say bye for now. And I always say, God bless you. And again, it was a pleasure having you on this podcast.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to meet with you and have this wonderful discussion. Thank you.
Yes.